Hey, pussy, buddy, here. Come on. Come here. No, don't want to come here. Okay. You see, her eye's good again. She, I don't know what happened. Must have got a scratch on the eye or something like that. And she's very pussy and always used to be closing it. But a little more than a week has gone past and it's all good. I noticed it was very good yesterday and it's perfect again today. So anyway, just got the van done. Got the transmission serviced on it and very dirty oil. Not a problem, we got that sorted. As you may recall, I thought we had a trouble with a universal joint or some sort of suspension joint because I do a hard right turn. It's right-hand drive, by the way. And I do hard right turn and I feel a clonking in the left side. Now over here, all your tie rods / CV joints and all that, most of your suspension on the left side will cop a hammering because we drive on the left side of the road and some of the roads, especially in this state, are very thin. So, you know, you've got to sort of pull over and your left wheel will leave the road and go onto gravel, and there's usually, you know, potholes and bullshit that are all on the edge of the bitumen. And it's always the left side that'll get a beating, and you'll know in the United States it's the right side, but you know, we drive on the other side of the road and the cars have the steering wheel on the right hand side. And I thought, well, yeah, it's probably just one of those things, or it's the actual universal joint in the drive shaft, you know, between the drive shaft and your actual wheel as such. And I noticed this when I went for a test drive, because of the way the area where I bought the car, you've got sort of 2-lane and sometimes I think it's even 3-lane road going in one direction, and then you've got like a, you know, an island, like a, you know, guttering in a strip of grass in the middle of the road, and then you've got 2 to 3 lanes on the other side. So anyway, pulled out, went up those for a couple of miles, and, you know, tried, you know, braking and turning and accelerating hard and all that, you know, and it seemed to perform really well. But of course I ended up doing a U-turn to come back, and in that I felt the clonk clonk bullshit. And so I've just assumed that, you know, it's something to do with, yeah, you know, the universal joint, or the fact that all left-hand suspension components get a bigger beating here because of driving on the left-hand side of the road. Now, while it was a company vehicle in the capital, it did spend the last year out in a country area. And, yeah, well, you never know until you actually, someone gets in there and has a look. But it turns out that it was none of those. It was bolts that hadn't been tightened up correctly, something to do with the struts or the suspension or some bullshit. They'd never actually done the bolts up correctly, and it's probably been like that for more than a year, because it was like that before they put in the new strut mounts, and I had to put in a new radiator, or get one put in, and the reservoir and service engine, blah blah blah. It was like that when I test drove it, and for the last year, maybe 2, maybe more, it's been loose bolts. They tightened the bolts, the problem is gone. I couldn't bloody believe it. It was just some incompetent dickhead that's worked on it previously. He couldn't make it up. So anyway, I was over at my parents' place before, just getting something out of the freezer, and coming out of there I turned around and I went full hard lock. Well, I come out of a supermarket as well, and I'd done a fairly hard turn, but it wasn't full lock. Didn't feel anything. I'd done a full lock at my parents' place to the right. Fine. Nothing. These couple of bloody bolts just weren't done up enough. You couldn't make this shit up. So I've had a really good day, and I thought this was going to be $800 or more by the time they, you know, and it was going to be like today's Friday. I've taken it in. Well, it's supposed to be 8 AM. I got in there probably 7:45 or something like that. And you know, by 2 o'clock, they had all these other cars already on the hoist, and by 2 o'clock, I've gone and picked the thing up, and he serviced the transmission. No problems that are noticeable with the transmission. These 2 bolts are tightened, everything's solved. I thought it'd be Wednesday next week and $800, and I had it in a few hours at $300. Oh, I've had a good day. I've had a really good day. Having said that, I had a shit of a night last night because that blasted white wagon, I got about, it wasn't a great deal more than a mile from work, and I'm driving along probably like 35, 40 miles an hour, and fucking bang, she just fucking died. It's like someone turned the key off. It's ignition system issues. And I just literally had to roll to a stop. So I had to switch to propane. So I tried to start it again on propane, nothing. Change to gasoline, go again, nothing. Turn the key off, give it 15 seconds, turn the key back on. Propane again, nothing. Gasoline again, nothing. Son of a bitch. Son of a bitch. So anyway, I ended up ringing up my father. He had to get a coil off another vehicle. It was a pain in the ass to get. By the time he ended up coming, it was almost 3 hours later. By that time I'd walked to the nearest McDonald's and got some food, and come back and waited for him. Well, looking up online all different possible things and not really getting any good images or anything, and all the later models, but not my 22-year-old banger, and yeah. So then we thought, well, let's check all this out. And he was, oh, it'll be the propane. Maybe the propane. We had a lead come off once before off of the fuel switch, because they got literally fuel switches on them for the gasoline and the propane, so you can swap between fuels, so you don't get 2 lots of fuel at once. So I said, well, I don't really think it is, because it wouldn't go onto propane and it wouldn't go onto gasoline either. Oh, well, we'll just check. So he's pulled out a multimeter. And he said, we'll switch to propane, turn back to propane. Rightio. Go to turn it on. And he said, yep, you got power coming there. But he goes, oh, that spade wasn't completely on the solenoid. Like it's a tap solenoid, where it's like a solenoid on the top, but it's actually like it turns on and off type thing. Like it actually stops the propane flow. And I used to have some blowing around off other propane tanks, but anyway, it's no power to it. Oh, maybe the spade was a bit loose, and I'll just sort of give it a push there, and maybe I said no, it didn't start on gasoline either. So we've got to check if we've got a spark. So what's the easiest way to do that? Hey, look how good your eyes are, hey? All good again, hey? Yes. So what you got to do? Get the plug spanner out, get a spark plug out, sit it on top of the rocker cover. There's a bolt on the rocker cover. Hold it on there. He's going to hold it on there. You know, this is like 25,000 volts, this bloody thing. He's going to hold it on there with a ratchet with not even a 1/4 inch worth of cheap shit rubber on the end. And I'm like, oh, God, you're going to zap yourself straight through that shitty bit of rubber. So I had a thong or a flip-flop, whatever you want to call them. And I had a pair of flip-flops there, so I said to him, have this damn thing, hold it with this, at least there's no metal in it. So he held it down with that, and he said, rightio, crank it over. So I cranked it over, and the bitch started, and it was like, out the blooming hole where we'd just taken the plug. And he said, oh, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off. And he said the spark was coming out really good. And I said, yeah, well, yeah, obviously, because it was running. So we put the plug back in and all that bullshit and closed the hood and drove home without a fucking problem. Oh, man. These coils are in the worst place in the frickin' world. You got to get from underneath, and I was unable to move, jammed up against a gutter. So, so we're working out if we'd have to tow it, and he's got this monster-sized friggin' roller jack and all this bullshit, and you're thinking, oh, fuck, here we go. And it wasn't an issue. So anyway, about half an hour, or an hour, well, probably an hour ago now, I was around talking to my mechanic, and I told him about what happened with that, and he said, yeah, you'd never bloody know, would you, with the whole thing with the bolts not being tight. And I told him about this one, and he said, well, is it a coil pack one where you've got no distributor, or do you have an actual distributor? And I said, well, it's one that's got a distributor. Because that model, they changed over to the newer model of engine like my last car had, just for the last 4 or 5 months of that older model of body. They didn't wait to the new shape before they put a new engine in. They tried this engine out at the end of the older previous shape, like the white wagon I'm driving. But mine had the original older engine. One of the dead giveaways is, well, first of all, it's got a distributor cap. Second of all, they take a different grade of oil. So you got a lot thicker oil in it. And I said, yeah, I can definitely see distributor cap. There's no doubt about it. And he said, well, there's a pretty common problem with those distributor caps. There's a certain failure that happens with them. And he said, you actually got to be pretty careful because some of the aftermarket ones have the same failure that the old well-used Ford ones have. So you can buy a brand new aftermarket one and it'll friggin' die after like 6 months or something. Just a bit of a design fuck up somewhere along them. And I said, what is it, the actual distributor bit just wears out and then it's got an arc between the contacts? He said, no, it's not that. He didn't really elaborate on what it was. And he said, and when you do that, it's probably a fairly intelligent idea to do the coil as well. And I said, well, I'll do both then, and you know, we arrange a time that he can go and do that. So it looks as though that's going to be Wednesday before he can even put a spanner to that one. So it looks like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday I'm going to be driving the van to work for fear of the other one dying in the arse on the side of the fucking road in the capital as it did last night again. So yeah, I'm not going through that shit. And the van's working fine, and everything that needs doing on the van has been done, except the belt tensioner, which has a squeak, but you run it for like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and I don't know, maybe the balls or some part of it, it all heats up and it sort of shuts up. And even when I went to pick it up tonight and I started it up, not a noise. But you get up there and it's morning and it's fairly cool and hasn't moved for 8 hours and then or more, or a few days, more like it, and then you start it and she starts. So anyway, at some point, no big rush, we've got to do that, but I'm sure as hell not getting stranded with a failed distributor or fucking coil with this other fucking thing. So it looks like I'm going to be driving the van a bit, and yeah, that's what I'm going to be driving to work until we get this other distributor and coil for this other machine on and done, and then I can go back to my propane wagon again and not be paying so much on fuel to get to work. But you know, as I said to my mechanic, I'm going to stick with a car that I know works. So I'm going to be driving that van because I couldn't be fucked to have a fire on the side of the bloody freeway and be there till the fucking midnight trying to get this bastard going if I could have just driven the good vehicle in the first place. So we'll be driving the good vehicle. Anyway, he left a bloody oily hand mark on the friggin' side of the door, and plus one of his bloody icicle fucking plastic things next to the blooming driver's seat. But anyway, I'll just go and wipe that off. And yeah, that's that.